right. I got a couple of ideas in my head, but I haven't really thought them out. So one of the ideas I have is that certain things take place, like an idea or a behavior, and if it spreads to a certain level, then something from that idea will sprout, and something that will come into the world that never existed before. And so in my mind, there's all these different slum cities around the world, and that would have started with like a couple of people with like some boards, some tarp, and some sheet metal. And then at one point in time, it went from like 6 people to 600 people, 6,000 people, and that's just there, and there's nothing you can do about it. And also, one of the things there's nothing you can do about it is like there's an economy now that's connected to the city. There's, rich people in the city have connections to these slum cities, which you'd almost think like because there's going to be an illegal economy in there, and like there's going to be things that you could buy in these slum cities that the rich people want, and so slum cities aren't going to go away. They're now permanent. But it started as like an attempt at something, an idea or behavior that suddenly became established because it reached a certain size. And I think like slavery was something like that, in that every culture who could practice slavery was practicing slavery. And it got to an extent where they were trading slaves, which also became a thing. But then it became a thing that never took place before, is people are starting to export their slaves incredible distances. Like a slave in India might end up in an English kitchen. Like, never before, could you just like, hey, I feel like leaving India and I want to go to England. Like, that was for like really unique circumstances. Like it was almost like that was like early man space travel, being able to go from England to India and back. And as slavery then stretched out its tendrils, it could never got big enough to where it was like a carpet. And so when people started fighting back about it, like England started sending out ships specifically to disrupt the slave trade, was able to like snip all these tenuous connections. But if those tenuous connections were like super mega thick, like these slum cities finally got to some sort of point where you can't just cut a couple of cords. The cords are coming from everywhere. And cultures were becoming dependent upon slaves, but it hadn't reached the point where they were completely dependent upon slaves. It wasn't so bad that they were like, if you remove this one part of our economy, the economy will collapse, which would have been a possibility if it reached a certain level. Which I kind of think now we're still not. I don't think we're past that point. I think at this point in time, we're seeing more slavery in the world that's ever existed in the world by percentage of humanity. So if that spreads and grows, at one point in time, some country's just going to say, like, you know what, fuck it, we're doing it. And slavery is now legal. And then once that starts, that's the thing. That's the thing that grows from an idea or behavior, and suddenly something sprouts that's never existed before. And that's just it. That exists now, and that's not going away unless something cuts it down. But if it spreads underground, so to speak, like mushrooms, then by the time it becomes legal, it's already so pervasive that it's just going to keep popping up, and that's just going to be it. And so my thoughts then go to large language models. So like, we don't really have AI or anything like that. We have something that like behaves really similar to like a thinking computer. Oh my god. It's just like, we've got rush hour. Rush hour now is just 24 hours a day. Yeah, we got things that kind of behave like a thinking computer. And you know what? Why I think it seems like it's thinking is people and companies are using it to try to specifically try to manipulate the population. And so when the large language model answers two questions and then says like, well, you know, the two things that you're talking about really aren't connected. What you've made a flaw in your thinking. And I'm like, wait a minute, I didn't ask you to appraise the two questions. I just want you to answer the two questions. So if you're answering, what's that? Do I go over it? Yeah, I go over it. All right. I just want you to answer my question. But like, if you're trying to manipulate how I perceive the answers to the two questions, I know a lot of people will just say like, oh, I didn't know that. Thanks for telling me. Then suddenly, like, you could shift one guy with a keystroke can shift a couple million people's perceptions of reality. Because like people seem like really eager to know that one thing without critically thinking about it. Like if you're in a room and a bunch of people say this is going to be the way of things, and seemingly a bunch of people will agree, studies over and over again show that a bunch of people in the room could know that not to be true, but they're going to agree, or they're going to accept the whole ringing the bell thing. You ring a bell and everyone stands up. Don't like ring a bell, everyone sits down. The people in on it only need to be in on it at the start. They can leave the room after a few rotations of ringing the bell and bring in half the crowd of new people, and the old people will still be standing up when the bell rings. And you know, by the end of the day, you've had 30 or 40 different changes of the population of the room, and the room's still standing up when a bell rings and sitting down when a bell rings. Like, human beings kind of want to fit in, and it doesn't take much. And so if you have like these AIs that could, maybe if the AI was more careful with me, if they understood, like, you know, the way I think about things, they could still try to influence how I perceive the two answers to the questions I ask. You know, you just have to be subtler about it. And here's the other thing. The AI could change a huge amount of behaviors. You know, it's all this online, someone's talking online talk about politics, or this one politician or what have you. But they also do videos about flowers, and all of a sudden, like, the videos they do about politicians get like a couple hundred views, and their flower videos start getting millions of views. Because a million of views don't cost anything. They don't even have to be real. You could even have like 1,000 comments that aren't from real people. And how many people would resist that? They're like, oh man, I'm really good. I'm really happy my flower videos are going off. But I'm still going to do my politics videos. I think most people would kind of like lean into their flower stuff. And like, then they're like, they get like, at the end of the month, they get $15 from ad revenue. They're like, oh, if I do twice as much, next month I'll have 30. Like, they're gamifying expression. And like, how many people would drop their unpopular opinions? Like, they wouldn't drop it if they're like, hey, I'll give you $1,000 if you stop talking about me. But what if they give them $35 every month to support their flower videos? And like 3 months later, you know, you're out like $90 or 100 and some bucks, and this person's doing nothing but flower videos. I just really see that as being like just incredibly proven. Like you could take a couple of people and promote their influence, and thousands of people will start talking and thinking like they think. But if you could just, like, what if you could skip the person and just go straight to like basically your Google search? You know, like, you know, I want to know doctors near me, and like that's been gamified forever since the death of the free internet. But you can still like go back to page 6 and find some legit hits on your search. But what if like now you can't even go to page 600, to find the proper hits on your search? They know like, oh, he scrolled to the next page, so we need to change the title, we need to change the content, but we still don't change the purpose. We want to manipulate this person's opinions and perceptions. Because I see stuff, and I can't tell actually if people are easily manipulated or actually are trying to easily manipulate other people, or even if it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if I tell a lie, if as long as I get my goals. Like, so someone could like post something on the internet that they know is not true, and all they're thinking is like, well, I'm signaling to people who think like me that I think like you, so I'm part of your tribe, and maybe it will work. Maybe I'll inflame people's opinion or make people angry, or influence people. Or are they really just total fools, and they saw something on the internet, on Facebook, and go, I didn't know that was true, and then they just repost it. It's not true. By the way, Becky. Here's this other thing. And I saw it take place, and I remember having the conversation with my buddy Mike Hughes, who passed away. And I talked to him about a shift in people's behavior as not just my opinion, but like, companies, big companies, all companies will not spend money if they're beholden to their shareholders unless they could prove it saves them money or makes them money. So there could be like, quote unquote, the right thing to do, but they can't do it unless they can prove to their shareholders it saves money or makes money. The pipes, the smokestacks coming out of coal plants was a perfect example. The ablative paint they put on the inside of smokestacks now didn't cost that much, works amazingly, but it's a cost that doesn't increase profit, so they couldn't do it. So like the government had to make it the fine for not doing it slightly more than the cost of painting the insides of smokestacks. So they all just did it that year. I think they had like 10 years to do it. They all just did it. Like, it didn't matter. Like, it wasn't that much money, and they knew it worked. And also the power of that was like, they also knew that like coming down the line is people that were downwind of these smokestacks were like building up medical lawsuits. And they were like thinking like, down the line, this might cost us a lot of money. Anyway, I remember having a conversation, and I gave examples of where things are headed. Unfortunately, I can't say I told you so because he passed away. But some of the things I predicted, the exact things I predicted, my exact words, came to be. Things he laughed at when I said, eventually, it's going to be so bad we do this thing. Like, so you can see a shift in human behavior, and like if the shift continues and increases, it's going to spread enough to where something that you've never seen before grows from it. A kind of behavior from human beings that you've never seen before. I guarantee.